Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Santa Monica KTC Thursday night Sangha gathering. We're very happy to have Lama Kathy with us this evening, where she's going to be discussing the book by Mingyur Rinpoche, Joyful Wisdom. We would, if everybody would like to check out our center online, you can do so by logging on to santamonica.ktc.com. And you can see all of the events that we're going to be having for Thursday nights, as well as if you would be interested in joining as a member of our Sangha. There are options on our website to do so. And lastly, if you would like to offer a donation towards Lama Kathy this evening, you can do so as well on our website, or you can click the link in our newsletter that we sent out today as a reminder. And with that, if everybody will mute their microphone, that would be great. And then I will hand it over to Lama Kathy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks to all of you for being here this evening. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about the Dharma, and I really, congratulate you on the work you're doing for the folks in Southern California. So thanks so much. I am in the book here. Let's see. We are discussing chapter number 7 in Joyful Wisdom. This is where, after all of his various topics about meditation and the value of meditation and how meditation helps us to work with our minds in ways that we haven't before, he gets into the nitty-gritty, starting in chapter 7, of how do we cultivate attention and how do we practice open awareness. And so many of you are already students of Mingyur Rinpoche, so you have heard him present on these things, and his presentations will be far better than the one you hear from me this evening, because I have not received a full transmission of this from him, although he has given some teachings on this to us at KTD Monastery in Woodstock, New York, and I'll be drawing on some of those teachings this evening. We're going to talk about what attention is and how we cultivate it. So we'll begin with the thought that we're dedicating this session of practice and study to the benefit of all beings. So he begins the chapter by talking about that the mind is like a restless bird, that left to its own devices. It's like a restless bird, he says, that always flits from branch to branch, or sweeps down from the tree to the ground, and then flitting up into another tree. And basically, he said that all of the objects that are mentioned in this, he says, whether it's the tree, something on the ground, or something else, he said these are all objects of attention that are vying for our attention. And he says that all of the demands that we receive moment to moment, day by day, from our 5 senses, that is those are the eyes, the nose, the tongue, the ears, the skin, and so forth, this and the smell, and all of these things. We have all of these senses, and they're continuously taking in information that is then going to our mind and being processed by our mind. And he says, all of the inputs that come to us from our senses, he said, they're all interesting and powerfully attractive. And since there's always something going on around us, he said, it's very, very hard for this poor restless bird to settle down. And so then he said, no wonder his friends complained to him of being stressed most of the time, because there's always an onslaught of material and experiences and so forth happening to us. And so he said, how do you work with these things? How do you deal with it? How do you tend the restless bird of your mind? And he said that the practice of shine, or shamatha, which means calm abiding, was the very first practice he came to learn, even as a child. He said, calm abiding, he says, allows the mind to come to rest. And he says, so he said, for us, he said, shine, or a peace abiding, is really important because it allows us some relief from the constant onslaught of information coming into us through our senses. Because he said, it's not just the inputs, it's our habitual ways of looking at the inputs. On the next page, he talks about how easy it is for us to judge these inputs and say, I like this, I don't like that, I want this, I don't want that, and so on. And he said the practice of shine, or calm abiding, or shamatha, as it's known in Sanskrit, he said it involves letting go of our judgments and opinions and just looking at or paying attention to whatever we are seeing from whatever branch our little restless bird mind is sitting on. He said, maybe we'll see a screen of branches and leaves, but instead of flitting from branch to branch to get a better view, just look at each branch and leaf that is in front of you, paying attention to its shape and color. And he said, if we rest just on one thing, he says, we are attending to our experience in a way that allows us to distinguish our judgments and opinion from the simple experience of seeing. And this is something you can do right here, right now. If you look at what you've got, a screen in front of you, you're looking at either your laptop or your computer or your tablet or phone, if you just allow your attention to relax, your gaze to relax, and take in everything that's in front of you, just rest with it being there, you'll begin to get an idea of what he's talking about. So let's just do that for a moment. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche described it this way. He said, when you place your attention on what you are seeing in front of you, or anything else for that matter, he said, let your mind relax and expand in the experience of seeing. He said, don't conceptualize what you are seeing in front of you. Just don't label it, just see it and be with it. So we'll do that for about a minute and see how that is for us. We start by allowing our mind to come to rest, and then being with the experience of gazing at things around us. We're not like looking and scooping around like that. We're just taking in the whole picture at once. And that's a very short session of attending to what we're seeing. Mingyur Rinpoche says this is a very simple practice, but he said it has profound implications for the way that we approach difficult emotions and the various problems that we encounter in our daily life. He says, in most cases, our experiences are conditioned by what's in front of us. And he said, but if we just look at our experience directly, he said, we can see each detail as it is. Just see everything as it is. And he said, and our opinions and judgments as they are, not all mixed up, but as distinct aspects of our experience. He says, in that moment of pausing to just be aware, we open ourselves not only to the possibility of bypassing our judgments, our habitual ideas, and so forth, but also responding freshly to each experience as it occurs. And he said this simple awareness is an expression of the clarity of our Buddha nature. You remember a few chapters previously, he said that one of the root teachings of Buddhism is that we all have something called Buddha nature, but Buddha nature is not something sort of fantastical or unusual. It's just this mind and sort of the magic that the mind does when it perceives and experiences everything. He says when he said a simple awareness, he said, we shows us the clarity of Buddha nature, the capacity to see and to recognize what we're seeing, but without any concepts attached to or clouding our vision. He says we can recognize the concepts of I like or I don't like. He said in the same way that the bird can see distinct branches, leaves, or flowers. He says because clarity is unlimited, we can hold all of these different things at once without mixing them up. Actually, he said, clarity is always functioning, even when we're not consciously attentive to it. When we become aware of being hungry or being tired, he said, let's see, clarity is always functioning. When we become aware of being hungry or tired, he says, when we recognize a traffic jam or distinguish a chili pepper from a package of cheese. He said, without clarity, we wouldn't be able to think, see, or feel or perceive anything. Shamatha or Shine practice helps us to develop and appreciate our inherent clarity. And he says, he then talks a little bit about the uncertainty that many people bring to the practice of meditation. And I've seen this too, because when I've taught meditation in the past, some people come to me and they say they've received instructions on meditation previously, but the instructions confused them and were unclear, or there were too many instructions and they couldn't follow them. And they wanted to know how to do the practice of meditation. Well, in Mingyur Rinpoche's discussion that he follows on the next few pages, he talks a little bit about the objectless attention. He teaches several steps. The first step is this objectless attention. The second is attending to a form, putting when your attention on a form. And then the third step is is attending to sound. And then the next one after that is attending to physical experience. Now, and the fifth step is attending to thoughts. So he starts with a very a very relaxed attentiveness. And this relaxed attentiveness then is the background in which everything else arises and occurs for us. And this is it's sort of like the screen, if you will. If you're talking about watching a film, for example, there's the screen upon which all of the pictures are projected, and then there are all of the pictures. And he uses this idea of objectless attention as the background, this open, relaxed awareness. He starts with this, and then he proceeds through how to practice various methods. Now, tonight, we're only going to be able to get through a couple of these methods. But that's okay, because that's what we'll pick it up in the next time with step 3. We're only going to cover step 1 and step 2 today. And then we'll go to step 3 next time we chat. So this way you get an opportunity to practice both of these. Now, we did a little of this, just being aware of what you see and so on. And so what he says about this, he said the most basic approach to attention is referred to as objectless, which means you're not focusing on any particular scene or aspect of experience, but just looking at and marveling at the wide range of experiences and scenery as it comes and goes. He describes a trip he took to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where he said that he hiked up a hill. And so when he was partway up the hill, he would get tired and overwhelmed by the altitude, the heat, and the humidity. And he said at certain places there would be a bench, a wooden bench, and then he would sit in the chair and just rest, simply being aware of his own physical fatigue and his surroundings. He said, you don't need to get tired walking up a hill in Rio, or anywhere else for that matter, in order to have this sense of open relaxation and awareness. He said, you can experience it after washing a pile of dishes. When you're finished washing the dishes, you can sit down in a chair with a big sigh. Ah, he said, your physical body may be tired, but your mind is at peace, open, and at rest. He said, maybe your children are making noise in another room, or maybe you're watching TV with all the changes in scenes and the commercials, but neither disturbs your sense of awe or relaxation. He says, thoughts, feelings, and sensations may come and go, but you just observe them. You pay light and gentle or bare attention to them as you rest with that feeling of awe, simply open into the present moment. And he said, right here, right now, there is only the present. He said, the past, which is washing your dishes or climbing the hill, is over. And the future, more dishes, more walking, and so on, has yet to come. Right here, right now, there is only the present moment of awe. I remember Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche talked about this in one of his books. He said, if you're able to do this, he said, it's very good. He said, because you don't entertain, you don't artificially prolong the past, meaning you don't think about what's just happened. And he says, you don't artificially entertain or invite the future. And you also don't analyze the present. He said, you merely rest in the present moment of mind's natural awareness. And so right now we're going to do that again, and then we'll have a little bit of a discussion afterwards about how you place your mind and how you rest your mind. So, and we'll do a little question and answer with that when we're done. So again, as he says, you begin by just allowing your attention to relax and expand in the present moment of experience, to be present with your awareness of everything that's in your field of view, not focusing on anything, just allowing your attention to relax and expand and be present. So we'll do that for a minute or so, and then we'll have a little discussion. Again, allowing the mind to rest and expand and relax. Okay, that's another short period of relaxed awareness. So I'm interested in seeing what your response is to the practice and if you have any questions. If you can use the raise hand function, that'd be great. But if you don't have questions, that's okay too.
It's hard to overcome the habit of letting the attention rest on something. And then even when I try and release that, it still seems like it's not exactly focus, but it's kind of like, the awareness branches out to the stuff that's like surrounding the computer, and then sometimes it's something behind the computer, and then it's the computer, and then so it's not exactly focus. It's kind of more like a field of awareness that shifts constantly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about the all over experience. So the idea is you're trying to allow the mind to relax, but you continue, what I hear you say is that you're continuing to focus down on some certain things, right?
Well, as the mind perceives things,
Mm-hmm.
it's not focus. Be, be, really, I mean, because there's as I said, there's all the stuff behind the computer, and there's lots
Uh-huh.
of stuff behind the computer.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Well, in his
it's almost as if the act of perception kind of it's almost as if the act of perception happens involuntarily, And so that's where the field of awareness shifts to. I perceive, because I can't, for example, my field of vision isn't big enough to take in absolutely everything.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of look, I can be aware of what's beyond the computer,
Mm-hmm.
but then sometimes, I'm also become aware of the computer and what's immediately behind the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like perceiving these things is an involuntarily brings them into awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, it's kind of like what he's describing actually in the book. That's pretty much exactly what he's describing. He said, he said when he went on his hike up the mountain,
Mm,
he said I would get tired and then I would just be there and simply rest, simply aware of my physical fatigue and my surroundings.
mm.
So it sounds like what you're doing is pretty much the practice.
Yeah, I think that's true.
He's and I'd like to invite some people who have done this practice. I think Daniel, you've done this practice before. Do you have a comment based on your experience of it?
Yes, I notice how unconsciously, wherever I look, my mind wants to like zoom in and analyze something. But then when you're giving us the instruction, it's more like a
Right.
fisheye lens. It's more like a panoramic view. And I notice I get a little more relaxed in my body and in my mind.
Right. Right. And is this at all similar to the way you've learned it elsewhere?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does this help a little bit, Bruce? Does this help a bit?
Well, I was just letting the experience unroll.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I were going to let the attention rest on something, it would be resting on something.
Yep.
So, and it's dissimilar from my experience of having the attention settle on something and well, doing shamatha.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's awareness of an experience, but it's not the experience of shamatha. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm. There's no sense of there being there's no sense then of abiding, calm abiding. There's an anxiety. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just letting it unroll. Whatever happens, happens.
Hmm.
Okay. But and you're saying that this is not shamatha that you've done before.
Now, this is definitely not shamatha. If I'm doing shamatha, I've let the attention rest and I'm returning to it.
Mm-hmm. And then returning. See, but isn't that interesting? Because I'm interested in what Daniel had to say, that he finds himself zeroing in on something and then he allows his mind to relax. So that's returning. I think it's interesting, isn't it?
Mm,
It's a type
Right?
of returning. Yeah.
well,
It's a type of what?
Returning.
Returning. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
The feeling I had from your instruction was something that Kempo Sultan Gamsa would say in a lot of his teachings. He'd say the point of all this is to become open, spacious, and relaxed.
Oh, open, spacious, and what?
Relaxed.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, I have to say that myself, I have it's not this is not the easiest practice for me because I'm used to other types of shamatha. And so I think that for me, that's what I experienced most at first, was the feeling of difference, right? Of it being different from what I was used to. And maybe I would judge it as not being as good. I don't know. I don't mean to put words in your mouth there, Bruce, but but that's what it was for me, that maybe this isn't shamatha, maybe this isn't meditation. Did that thought cross your mind?
No,
Okay.
it's experience. I mean, I'm watching the mind do something.
That's good. Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah, I get you on that. And I'll be interested to see what Mingyur Rinpoche, how he deals with this in the next section on meditating on form, right? And so I appreciate you sharing about that, because I'll be very interested to hear that. And plus, I'm going to share something from Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche about this in a minute or two. So thank you for sharing about that. We're going to learn some more, I think. Would others like to share an experience or what they experienced from this?
Charles is raising his hand.
Okay, thanks very much, Charles. Yes.
So I'm thrilled to get this because I've always felt that the teachings we were getting were ignoring the other sense doors of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and this is really exposure to teachings I'm very familiar with. However, this is so much more expansive. And when you said to let the mind rest and just expand outwards, suddenly what were very focused and concentrated practices based on the sense doors before became open and just open space. So I'm gaga here. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to be gaga from time to time, but not always. I have time for one more before we move into the next phase. Anybody else have something like to share?
have you ever tried? Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayu. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayu, and then Max, and then we'll close.
I'll be
Oh, I'm
quick.
sorry, it wasn't Mayu, it was Lisa, right?
Oh, it was Mayu, but I don't know if that's okay to talk.
Yeah, Mayu, go ahead, go for it. You're
I know
given
when
the
you,
high sign here.
I don't know. I mean, you guys are all more practiced than I am, but when you first said to just before this, when you said to just look at what's in front of you, I had a hard time doing that because I found my eyes like flitting all over the room with what was right in front of me. And then the second time, when I focused more on what was just directly in front of me, then I found suddenly a big shift to being calmer.
Mm-hmm.
And then noticing like some subtle little things, like I have a little window when I look right in front of me and the leaves were moving, or it
Mm-hmm.
pans into a part in the bathroom where the shower curtain, the wind was blowing, and so you start noticing these little subtle changes. And then I thought, oh, is it okay to focus on these little subtle things, or should you just try to still shift to what's not moving right in front of you? So that was, and it helped me really realize like how how to take that time to really focus is such an important thing.
Right. Yeah, this
Because
is good.
you see subtle differences, but you're seeing clearly, and suddenly there is a shift to being calmer. Much
Right.
calm. I don't know if that makes sense.
Actually, it does. And when I share of the quotation from Khenpo Rinpoche, this will help a little bit. Yeah, so I appreciate that. I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that is, for many of us, the question we have, the little thought balloon that's coming out of our heads is like, is this really meditation? Is being aware of just being aware meditation? And Mingyur Rinpoche is saying, yes, it is, as long as you don't allow yourself to be carried away, because he says that in the very next paragraph, and I'll cover that in a minute. He's kind of
Okay,
he's kind of putting the guardrails on.
that's good. Yeah.
Okay, that gives you a sense of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Max, did you have a comment, or was that Lisa that I was hearing?
Oh, you just answered it with the next, what you just said, just answered it. So that's great.
Okay, go Lisa. Okay. Before we leave it, Max, was that you or no? Okay.
It wasn't me. Sorry, I didn't get to the mic. It wasn't me. Sorry.
Okay, very good. Okay, well then let's move on to what he says next. So here's a few of the guardrails. He said objectless attention. And I'm sorry, he's basically saying this relaxation is like the end of a busy day, when you're kind of resting in your easy chair at the end of a busy day. He said, just let go and relax. He says, you don't have to block any thoughts, emotions, or sensations that arise, but neither do you have to chase them. So you don't block and you don't chase. He says, rest in this present moment of awe, just, of this expansive relaxation. He said, if thoughts, emotions, or sensations arise, simply allow yourself to be aware of them. You allow yourself to be aware of them. And Mayu, that includes that gently moving curtain and the shimmer of the sun and the leaves that are moving outside the window. So it's like that. And maybe even the sensation of the air on your face, if that's coming in the window. And Bruce, this would also cover sort of what you were experiencing as well. So he says, if thoughts, emotions, or sensations arise, simply allow yourself to be aware of them. Then he says, objectless attention does not mean just letting your mind wander aimlessly among fantasies, memories, or daydreams. So there's your guardrails. Okay, there's your guardrails. You may not be fixating on anything in particular, but you're still aware, still present to what's happening in the here and now. For example, he said, well, recently on a layover at the Denver airport, I saw a lot of shuttle trains go by on a track overhead, taking people to different terminals and different parts of the terminals. He said, I sat there on my chair watching the trains go back and forth, content to merely observe them as appearances passing through my awareness. There was no need to get up and follow after every train, wondering, where is it going? Where is it coming from? How long will it take to get where it's going? I just watched the trains go by. Then he says, when we practice on the level of objectless attention, we're actually resting the mind in its natural clarity, unaltered by the passage of thoughts, emotions, and sensations. This natural clarity, he said, is always present for us in the same way that space is always present. In a sense, he said, objectless attention is like allowing ourselves to be aware of the branches and leaves while recognizing the space that allows us to see them in the first place. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations shift and quiver in awareness in the same way branches and leaves shift and quiver in space. Moreover, this space is not defined by the objects that move through it. Awareness isn't defined or limited by the thoughts, emotions, and sensations it apprehends. Awareness simply is. And if you remind, and so he says, objectless attention involves settling into this isness. Great word, isness. Simply watching thoughts, emotions, appearances as they emerge against or within the background of space. Some people find the practice as easy as sitting in a chair after washing dishes, but others find it rather difficult. He said, I did. Whenever my father or other teachers tried to explain this objectless attention, I was mystified and maybe a little bit resentful. I couldn't understand how it was possible to just watch whatever was going on as if it were a movie, or, as many Buddhist texts say, a reflection of the moon in a pool of water. In moments of greatest anxiety, my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations didn't seem like reflections. They seemed terribly solidly real. Fortunately, he said, there are other steps we can take to guide us through the process of simply being aware. And so this is, I love it that he begins with this objectless awareness. And Khenpo Rinpoche, in one of his books, also starts with this by describing, don't prolong the past, don't invite the future, don't analyze the present, but rest in the present moment of mind's natural awareness. Now, I asked Mingyur Rinpoche what awareness was. And he said, because I got a chance to do an interview with him, and I've mentioned this in this series before, so sorry for the repeat. But he said, awareness is very simple. He said, do you see my hand? And I said, yes, I see that. And he said, do you hear the snapping of my fingers? And I said, yes. And he said, that's awareness. He said, you're aware of what you see, you're aware of what you hear, and you can also be aware of awareness. That was very helpful to me. So I'm just going to pass that on to you. And I know, right, that you can also be aware of that awareness. And this matches what he is saying on this page, where he says awareness is very simple. It is, how did he put it? Objectless attention involves settling into this isness, simply watching things appear and emerge from the background of empty space. But for me, that description was not as useful as the description he gave me when he said you could be aware of awareness. And so that when you find yourself honing in on something, honing in on any perception, that you would then allow yourself to be aware of awareness. And then that would reestablish the sort of relaxed attention. I'm looking at my time. We're going to the bottom of the hour. Is that right? Okay, good. So there's one thing I'd like to read to you from Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. He talked a little bit about, after he talked about this objectless awareness, he said something very important that I want to share with you. He said, if you can allow your mind, actually, let me just go ahead and read what he says about this. He said, it's so interesting. He said, if you're not prolonging the past and not inviting the future and not analyzing the present, what are you going to do? You know, he said, so if you're not doing any of those things, he said, if you're not reviewing the past, speculating about the future, or even thinking about the present, all that is left is to simply remain in the direct experience of the present moment of awareness. This is described as a state that's free of any contrivance. You're not trying to make it into something. There is no attempt to add or remove anything from your state of mind. You do not attempt to control or alter your state of mind other than simply resting in lucid awareness of the present moment. And then he said, because your mind is unaltered, yet nevertheless aware, this is called ordinary cognition or ordinary awareness. The words for this in Tibetan, in case you have heard this before, is Tamal Gi Shepa, Tamalgyshepa, Tamal Gi Shepa, or ordinary awareness. In the terminology of Mahamudra, you do not attempt to eliminate thoughts, nor do you try to maintain or prolong them. This is exactly what Mingyur Rinpoche said. You don't block them, but you also don't follow them. He said there's neither hope for any particular state nor anxiety about thoughts arising. In short, you simply let your mind rest in a state that is both fresh and expansive. He said fresh means that there is an immediate awareness of the present moment, and expansive means that this awareness is relaxed and not held through tension. Remaining in that fresh and expansive and undistracted awareness without attempting to alter thoughts is the instruction. So that, as Mingyur Rinpoche said, when he was first taught this objectless awareness, he said it made him feel weird and he found it difficult. And then he said, I even felt a little resentful. And so he said, so it took some time to allow that relaxation to emerge. Then he says, then Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche gives us hope, because in his next paragraph discussing the same type of description, he said, if you can allow your mind to come to rest in that way, then the additional techniques of Shine are not necessary. However, he said, since it often happens that we cannot simply rest our minds in this ordinary moment of awareness, this ordinary cognition. Bruce, I love it that we talked about perception itself, and Rinpoche talks about ordinary cognition. So it's like the mind doing its thing, the mind experiencing things. It's very much what you described. He says, since, however, it often happens that we cannot simply rest our minds in this ordinary awareness or ordinary cognition, he said, a variety of methods involving directed mental attention are given. And then he lists a bunch of them. And this leads into what Mingyur Rinpoche is talking about, which is then meditation on form. And so I apologize, but I was too ambitious. I thought we would cover more than just objectless awareness tonight, but we're not going to be able to. But here's what Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said about this, and you can re-listen to this recording afterwards to kind of pick up on what he's saying. Rinpoche said that one of the methods is to direct your attention to an object or form that's in front of you, a visual object. You can also do this with sound, and Mingyur Rinpoche talks about both using sound and a visual object. And then he says, Rinpoche says, now this is Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche talking now. He says, he said, if you find something simple to place your attention on, like a stone or a stick, or maybe an image of the Buddha or something, he said, that's great. He said, but he says, if you find something that you can rest with, great. Because this way, if after your period of objectless awareness at the beginning of your session, You can go back to breath awareness if that's helpful, if that's something you're familiar with, because you don't want to force yourself to relax, because that's kind of like, it's kind of like not with the idea, right? So if you find yourself becoming fatigued of doing this relaxation, I know that's weird, right? Fatigue. Anyhow, if you find sorry. Yeah, if you find that becoming like a little difficult or a little frustrating, you can then shift gears and go back to whatever method of shamatha you're used to. If it's breath awareness, then return to that. And if it's object awareness on an object or a sound, go back to that. But if you're going to pick an object, Rinpoche said, he said, what's most important is the way I'm giving you a preview of next time's class on form. Okay, so should you pick a form or should you pick an object? Whatever that object is. He said, what matters most, this is Khenpo Karthar speaking now, what matters most is the way you rest your mind on the object. You rest your mind in a direct perception of the object without any analysis about it. Your perception of the object is thus direct and simple, without any conceptual overlay or an overlay of inherent substantiality to the object. The object is vivid and clear, but unconceptualized, like the appearance of a rainbow in the sky or the reflection of the moon in a pool of water. It's unconceptualized. Then he says, that faculty of mind engaged in regarding the object itself is not a fixating faculty. Your attention is on direct experience and not on conceptualizing the perceived characteristics of the object. And so he said, let's talk about visual perception. He said, if you are resting your mind on an object of visual perception, you're not attempting to imprison or imprison your mind with force or with tension. If your mind comes to rest, it's allowed to come to rest. When your mind moves, when a thought arises and so on, you don't try to stop it or slam it down. Although there is an objective object of attention and you are not losing track of the object, you let your mind expand freely rather than attempting to imprison it. Then he said, this also means that you don't impose any idea on the activity that you're doing. You don't think, oh, I'm meditating now, or this isn't meditation, it's not going well. You don't invest a great deal of hope in the mind coming to rest or cultivate anxiety that thoughts will arise and so on by abandoning any attempt to control or suppress the functions of mind. You are actually cutting through all the thoughts that occur. Now, you might think, is that possible? And the fact of the matter is, we're going to cover this exact same material next time. So I just wanted to give you the preview so that you would understand that if you segued from objectless awareness into an object meditation, that this is how you attempt to relax your mind in the direct perception of the object, but that it's not conceptualized. So, it's these are experiments that we're doing with ourself, right? We're using our mind and our experience of the world as our object of meditation. And so it's different from other things we may have done in the past. So I hope this is okay. Everybody seem okay? You okay? Is everybody okay?
Is it possible to ask a question?
And we are
Or are
running
we out of Okay.
I will entertain the question, but if I can't answer it quickly, I may have to defer it till next time.
Okay. How does one apply this to day-to-day functioning in life?
You know, I think that the main thing to do is when you catch yourself feeling tense, when you catch yourself being worried or tense about anything, then allow yourself to think for a moment. Nothing wrong is going on, and then just let go of the tension. I had a counselor tell me this once. He said, when you feel that tension in your shoulders, he said, drop your shoulders, do it consciously, let your chest expand, and your breathing will get better, and so forth and so on. So that's, to me, the easiest way to apply it, but we can talk more about that next time.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, keep that question and write it down, okay? And then we'll come back to it next time. But the most important thing at the beginning is just notice when you're feeling tense and stressed, and then just allow the mind to relax as much as you can, putting the shoulders down and allowing the chest to open a bit, just to see if that helps. Okay?
Right, because tension blocks meditation and what you're
Yeah.
doing in life.
Exactly. And I think that the whole idea of this objectless awareness and letting the mind rest in awareness is that you can then become aware of awareness anytime. So we'll talk about that next time too.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, no, thank you for your question. I appreciate it. I'm so glad it was one I could address quickly. You guys are great. Oh, very cute. Hey, all right. Hello.
How are you?
Hello, 2468.
That's me, Betty.
Hey, Betty. Hi.
How are you? I miss you a lot.
Oh, thank you so much. Send me an email, okay? I'll pray for you and your family, all right?
Okay. I was practicing Dzogchen and Mahamudra.
Yes, I'm really happy for you, Betty. I think it's really a good thing because we all need this practice, right?
Yes. So it's my teacher want me to practice Mahakala and Yamataka too.
Oh, I understand. Well, we have to stop for tonight, Betty, but I really appreciate you saying hello because I wondered who 2468 was. And so thank you for joining.
Yeah.
I will pray for you and your family too, okay?
Okay. So you want me to keep practice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And send me an email. Let me know how you're doing, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll dedicate our merit, and we'll dedicate our merit to all suffering beings, of which there are so many in the world right now. We will dedicate the merit that they are free from suffering and they come to happiness and then to Buddhahood. I'll recite this short prayer in English. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Thanks, everyone. It's great to visit with you.
Kathy, good night. Good night.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy Losar.
Well, happy
Happy
Losar.
Losar.
Happy Losar. When is Losar? Tomorrow or Saturday?
Saturday.
I
It's
thought
Saturday.
Saturday.
Omani Padme Hum. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.